A very good evening and a warm welcome. At Hyde Park tonight, we will talk about national security and the way forward for Sri Lanka at a critical juncture where Sri Lanka is fielding presidential candidates to lead the country in the next few years. Of course, to talk about national security, we thought we'll invite to our studios the 20th Army Commander of Sri Lanka, retired General Daya Ratnayake. Good evening and a warm welcome to Hyde Park.
Good evening.
You developed and led the humanitarian operation during the final stages of the war, and you've been heavily involved in the reconciliation activities that were spearheaded after the war. Let's look back at your work since then as a starting point to our discussion tonight.
Oh, thank you very much for getting us here. And Indeewari, you asked about if you look at the past incident, so bringing peace into the country first thing, and we were fighting basically for 30 years the most dangerous, ruthless terrorists in the world, and we learned through very costly experience, and finally we developed a new concept called humanitarian operation. So this basically, actually there was a paradigm shift. That is what people have to understand. All this time we have been saying terrorists always. But when we look at deeply, we go into it, and these are people who have been marginalized due to our own activities. As a result, we finally decided these are victims. We want to liberate these people from. So that is why we launched this humanitarian operation to take these people away from the clutches of terrorism. That is how. And also based on 4 fundamentals we did that. The first was maintaining zero casualties to civilian. Second was maintaining minimum damage to civilian and government properties. Third was maintaining minimum damage to the Sri Lankan armed forces or the soldier. Then fourth was causing adequate damage to the terrorist leadership. Those are the 4 basic fundamentals on which we went into offensive. So basically government, when we discussed, they agreed to it, and we developed the new concept. Thereafter we developed, we had to restructure the military, retrain the military, and re-equip the military to take this on. So that is how we went in, and government basically told us it will be about 5 years we have, so within 3 years we completed. That is how. The other important factor I must tell you, Indeewari, when we were developing the concept, we never thought only to defeat terrorism, but also we look at the final objective, final goal of the country, bringing peace to the country, bringing sustainable peace to the country. In order to have sustainable peace, you have to stabilize the society, the social stability. Then you have to bring up the economy and economic stability, and politically country has to be stabilized. Then only you have sustainable peace. So this, we look at the final objective, and we thought these are terrorists, these are victims now. So these victims are to be transformed to be the disciplined, worthwhile citizen of the country. Therefore, we developed this rehabilitation program, which is one of the, actually, according to UN and all, it's the best program available in the world out of 32 programs in the contemporary history in the world. So that is how we look at the final. So the success of that is basically, if you look at now after 10 years down the line, all the international universities have done the research from the beginning, in between, and also now after 5 years they came, and after 10 years also they have come and given some reports. In that they say these people have, none of them have resort back into violence or extremist activities. Keep aside extremist activities, none of them have been caught for even antisocial activity. That's the success. So this is what during that period we strategized, implemented, and successfully completed. So if you look at it, that is how I look at, if you look at the past, this is how I can summarize.
If you talk about, when you say we, the military, the army, this is the same military that is accused of violating human rights in Sri Lanka during the final stages of the war, during the end of the conflict, and even after. To date, the military is attracting, I would say, a lot of international criticism in terms of violating human rights. But a question arises, alleged human rights violations and then contributing to sustainable peace, development and economic prosperity of the country. How do we look at this?
Indeewari people have different opinions and different views and opinions. So here even what I should say, and they have their opinions according to the international, how they think, and they say this is violation. But I am telling, I can challenge all those people and say, if you come and study what we have done, this is the best form, best concept that we can find to defeat terrorism anywhere in the world. So these, the academics, the university, the Georgetown University of the United States, have done a research on what we have achieved. In 2010, they published a paper and say, Sri Lankan concept of defeating terrorism, the methodology, they have adopted the system, all that, when you take it as a holistic thing, it is kind of the best program to defeat terrorism anywhere in the world. Only thing you take it, if you are taking it to a country, you have to modify it according to the country requirements, otherwise the basic fundamentals, basically the best in the world, they say. So this is it. But certain organization making allegations, is not, we are not worried about it. But only thing, as a government, we have to understand all these things and counter professionally counter these arguments. Then only we can go ahead.
Are you saying, General, that the government has not countered or done its best in managing this situation internationally?
Absolutely, absolutely. First thing, I don't know whether they have understood what we have done. That is a sad part of it. And so when I see the ministers and senior officers, professionals speaking, I realize that those people have not what we have done. So this is the sad part of it. This is where, and they have not made an attempt to know what we have done. Nobody have understood basically what humanitarian operation means, the depth of the idea that we had. So how we conceptualize, how we strategize, how we implement, how we successfully completed it. People, matters must come and study these things, talk to the military officers who strategize these things. So I don't think no such effort being done by our own people, but large number of outside people, academics, universities, leading people in the world come and talk to us, talk to our military officers, talk to our academics here, and they try to learn. But it is sad part is that we are not taking serious of it.
Is there any way that the military can launch a mechanism where these allegations could be countered? I especially ask this because with the appointment of the 23rd Commander of the Army, General Chavendra Silva, who was appointed and shortly after international criticism was levelled as somebody who is directly involved in criticism, and this is also linked to the UNHRC resolutions that were passed and co-sponsored by Sri Lanka. So which means the government has openly and readily said, we accept your recommendations and proposals and we're ready to adhere to your recommendations. But doesn't the military have a problem with this? Hasn't the military raised this with the government?
This is basically, we have serious problem, military definitely, because the government is going and sponsoring somebody making an allegation against. This is the first time in the history these things happen. This has been, I think, criticized by many of our locals, and even outsiders have been criticized in this point. And this is something, in my personal opinion, I think is a great mistake that the government did, and going and sponsoring some resolution against Sri Lanka. That is it. Probably they may have not understood what it is. And thereafter now I have seen some people regretting, some leading leaders of the country, ministers, I have seen them talking and regretting about it. So appointing the military commander is actually, it is essentially a matter for Sri Lankan decision makers to do that. We have done. General Savenja Silla is one person who has done a yeoman service to bring in peace to this country, and he is a very professional officer. I don't think any of the allegations, I don't think anybody can prove those allegations against that officer or any other officer in the army, because we have done a superb job. We have conceptualized it. Again, I must say we have done a superb job. I don't think legally anybody can point a finger to the Sri Lankan Army or any of our officers. When these officers are being criticized outside, various organizations, human rights organizations, when they criticize, government has not put up a proper comprehensive plan or system to protect these officers and the military. That is where we have gone wrong. The other question you asked, and why the military is not promoting these things, what we have done. Actually, we have published books. We have published, we have answered all the questions, and during the time we developed all that. We gave to the foreign ministry, we gave it to the other required authoritative bodies, we have given them. But I don't think these things have been not taken to the required audiences. So that is where I think we have gone wrong. And the military can't go out and say into the international, say it is it, but they will not believe also the military. But it should go through the right channels, the foreign ministry, the academics, and these are the people who must do that. I don't think any of such people have made an attempt to do that. This is where we have failed as a country. War is not, we fought it. Military sacrificed there a lot, but this shows all elements of the country got involved in it. So everybody else, the military is there to fight a war here, but to go outside and talk is the foreign ministry, the academics and various organizations, media organizations. They must study this and they must publish this out. And there are people who are making films, there are people they are making dramas, writing songs. All these are a way of promoting what we have done. So that has not happened properly in the country. There was no proper comprehensive effort to do this.
But it's questionable because it was a country that managed the international community during the war, during the height of the conflict, end of the conflict, because there was a lot of international pressure also on the country. And shortly after, how can the country face such international criticism when it was the aftermath of the war that has to be dealt with? But then the government's role here also, the government says their responsibility is to maintain foreign relations.
What I'm saying, when the government say the foreign relations important, yeah, it is important. At the same time, when somebody is making an allegation against us, we have to counter. In order to maintain foreign relations, you have to clear all allegations. So that you have to have good comprehensive effort going into that. So that is where we are lacking in that aspect. So it is actually as a government we are failing, not as a military or anything. So institutions have done their part, but when you are promoting or when there are allegations coming, when there are relationships coming, if you are trying to do international relations at the cost of national security, these are things that you have to discuss. So you can't have sacrifice your national security and have international relations. What is it? So likewise, and if there are other people making a lot of allegations against your military officers, and if they want their own people to be appointed, and these are things that government must clarify these things. When we are disorganized, when we don't have a proper master plan, when you don't have a path vision, and these things happen. This is where we have gone wrong.
This time around, when General Shavendra Silva's appointment and the kind of criticism that came, did the government handle it well? Did Sri Lanka handle it well?
I think again it is not being properly handled, because appointment is good, that's very good, and we appointed, and we have our compliments for that to the president and other people who got involved in appointing him. At this moment he is one of the best officers we have, and he is an officer from, I know him from young days, small days. He's a very committed, dedicated officer who has sacrificed a lot to bring in peace to this country. And so as I said, he is one of the best officers. So definitely he definitely be the image of the army to very high level. I'm sure, because he's an officer who had done such things. So here, as a government, as you said, not being properly countering the allegations. That is what I just want to say.
Right. We'll take a short commercial break at Hyde Park. We'll return to talk more on national security and international relations after the short break at Hyde Park. Welcome back. At Hyde Park, we're talking to the former commander of Sri Lanka Army, General Daya Ratnayake, joining us today to talk about national security and the way forward for Sri Lanka. General, I think we were talking about international community, the response and the allegations for Sri Lanka Army, against Sri Lanka Army rather. I'd like to divert our attention to the presidential elections, if you may, but especially because national security has become a bigger topic during this election. Shortly after the Easter attacks, the kind of security, the lapses were exposed. But before we go to talk about the Easter attacks, about presidential elections, as somebody who commanded regiments of the army and who were also at the final stages of the war, spearheading humanitarian operations after, let's talk about our presidential election. Who should lead the nation? This might not be a question for you, but as a military person, let's talk about this.
Actually, in the very, this is where we have to rethink as a nation. And 71 years of independence, when we got independence, where we were, and in between how things happen, and many things happen, challenging the nation's national security, and many occasions we have come out. And we have gone through some crucial moments in our history, and we have come out. But when you look at all these things, we have been neglecting our national security. As a result, all these things happen. When we think of national security, people think we must have a big army, air force, navy. This is only part and parcel of it's a small element in relation to the national security, other elements in the country. So here people have not understood what national security means in general terms. That is where we are talking about. In any other country, where all their master plans, development concepts, strategies, everything revolves around national security, whether it is economy, national security in relation to the economy in relation to national security, education in relation to national security, and social development or politics, everything revolves around national security. Here only we have neglected it. As a result, how many issues that we face? 1971, then there was a coup also 1960s, coup attempt. So then 1971 issue, then 88, 89 issue, then for 30 years the issue that we had in the north and east, then again from the Tamil, that first thing was Sinhalese community, within the Sinhalese community it came, then the other issue came from the Tamil community, then now it is from the Tamil Muslim community, there's another wave of terror coming up. So all these things happen as a result of we have not national security seriously. That is where, when you take national security, once again, it is not. So this reconciliation of then having people together, all these things, we are not there. Now we are divided. After 71 years, still we are divided. Therefore, we must have a leader who can unite a country. What kind of a leader we are talking about? We must have a leader who has a proper understanding about all these things. We call, if you put it one or two words, a leader with who has a proper understanding, knowledge. We call it knowledge-based maturity. A unity leader, we call it. These are the words actually. Knowledge-based maturity. Leader must have that maturity. He must have the full spectrum understanding. Here, when we have our leaders, when they come and talk, when they come and discuss, we feel sorry that the knowledge that they have about national security, whether the economy and other fields. So, education is a very important thing. In my thinking, when I study about national security, the biggest issue that we find in Sri Lanka is education. So this is a serious threat to the national security, our system of education. So nobody talk about it in relation to national security. The economic development is another issue, is quite known, but we are talking, when we talk national security, where we are positioned, geopolitical, this thing, and those are traditional things. But for a country, you must be a very stabilized nation. In order to take a nation into that, you must have a proper leader who understands all this, who has the charisma, who has the leadership qualities. And this is what we want, who had a proven record. That kind of leader we must have. A lot of people judge people by what they talk. It is not it. Generally, there's a saying in the people judge you by the things that you have already done, not by the things you think you are capable of doing. And when somebody comes over in the TV or any place and talk, people impress. People have no idea to see what this man has done so far in the past. So most of our leaders who are coming into the forefront now, they have been in this country for more than 50, 60 years. People can go around and study and see. The media can study, other organizations can study, universities can study what kind of a man he is, what he has done in crucial moment, what this man has done, what he has talked, how he has been thinking. So all these can be, we can find these things. And when you have a leader, in my understanding, it is, we call it, he must have overall understanding about national security, economy, social affairs, education, that is how when we command the army, army has all elements. Army is a reflection of a country, right? So all the elements that you have in a country, it is reflected in the military. So that's why it's called a reflection of military. So we have to have a comprehensive understanding about all the elements.
I won't ask you to evaluate the current presidential contenders who have been fielded already, but we obviously have from the Janata Vimukti Peramuna also the leader saying national security is of utmost importance. And on the other side, so far the SLPP presidential candidate, former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Let's talk about him a little, because you have been known as Gota's man back then. But let me start off here. He's a military man. Is that what Sri Lanka wants? Because there's allegations that if the leadership of the nation goes to a military personnel, the country is going to be in the grip of military leadership.
What is wrong? If a person is disciplined, structured properly, understanding, he has a broad understanding, military leaders are being groomed from in a systematic manner. When we recruit a leader, when you recruit somebody into the military, we recruit we hire them for attitude, not for skill, not for knowledge. Those are basic requirements, but we look his attitude, whoever who is. Then we develop in a very professional manner. We develop in him basic fundamentals of developing a leader in the military, if you may allow me to say so. So we call the 5 C's. 5 C's. This is very interesting actually. 5 C's, what? Developing a leader. 5 C's. First C is character. Character is the most important thing. So we polish his character, we put inputs. Then the second thing is competency. Second C, competency. Top understanding about the whole subjects that he has to handle, and knowledge and understanding about all this, and also the wisdom. So then third thing is the courage, the physical and mental courage of a person. Leader must not, you understand the value of a leader. Junior level is physical courage, and senior level taking decision on that right decision at the right place and to the right problem. So he must have that courage of taking courage, leader. Fourth thing is comradeship. The French are the brotherhood like. So he must, selflessness of a leader. That is what military leader is. So that is the other thing. And the fifth one is culture. The culture is the deep-rooted values of an individual. So he must be a Sri Lankan. He must be having the Buddhist culture that we have. So all the Sri Lankan values, so as a nation values, and all that he must have. So when we develop a person based on such things, and how can you say it's not matching? Now say how this So I'm not trying to just promote him or something like that. But
if you may, let me also ask you another question in between. How do we, if for example, the former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa becomes the leader of the nation, how do we counter the kind of international criticism we have, especially because he's a military person?
No, how can, there are so many other leaders. Now say if you, there's another saying, before I answer your question, I say, before, there's a saying in the West, military produce leaders, democracy hire them. Military produce leaders, democracies hires them. That is how it is. So in United States, when you take out of, I don't know, it is 46th or 47th president right now, but out of them, more than 75%, 80% are from military background, 33 to be exact. Presidents out of all the presidents in the United States are from serious military background. Now you look at developed countries, Israel, Singapore, South Korea, and all these, China, all these leaders are from military background, and those countries are doing bad. So here we have to understand, I am not trying to promote a military officer at this moment of time when the country is entangled with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and all sorts of problems. So military leaders are thinking, when there is a serious issue in Indeewari, we become very normal. That is how military officer is being trained and groomed. So in time of conflict, he is normal. All five senses and mind focus on that point. That is how a military officer is being trained. That is how. Long years, a lot of investment going into train officers. So look at, when all other defense secretaries, all other people who came to Sri Lanka, who were there for last 70 odd years, when Gotabaya came, he strategized the whole thing, he finished the war. It's wrong. So when the country did not have a proper brand name outside the world, he developed a nice brand name. Sri Lanka, the most developing country, rather most beautiful cities. So when he was given the ministry, and he brought that ministry to be the best ministry in the country. And in fact, Colombo became the most the preferred city in the world to be visited. So likewise, so he has proved beyond any reasonable doubt. That is what I have said. Then you are asking about international allegations. Yeah, international allegations are always there. So if you really structure your system, if you really tell the world, here it is, we can, through discussions, proper professional analysis, we can develop system and tell the world, here it is it, and we can counter all that. So as a nation, if you have a proper plan, countering those things won't become a difficult exercise.
As I said, you were accused of being the main man of Gotabaya Rajapaksa, then Defence Secretary. You were appointed as Army Commander on the 1st of August 2013, on the very same day that the Parcel Incident happened. Yes, of course, there is ongoing deliberation about it, but there are so much of allegations against and accusations against the former Defence Secretary, along with Army, military involvement. How close was your engagement with him, and what do you know to tell us?
Yes, a main man means when I was the Army Commander, definitely Army was the biggest organization. We were doing a lot of things, and that is how people would have thought. But soldiers, whether is anybody, whatever the government come into power, we have been working very closely. That is how. Then people judging us, I told you at the initial, people have different opinions, views and opinions, so they judge it. There is no problem. But have we done anything wrong by doing that? So we have done a lot of good things for this country. And if you take the Parcel Incident, and how can you make allegation to Defence Secretary directly, when 2 days after the incident, when media asked me who takes the responsibility, I told this as Army Commander, the military people have got in, all Army Commander takes the responsibility. I as Army Commander take the responsibility. I gave evidence and all inquiries I face. So that was the first day and the first day, the incident, but still I took the responsibility. I saw thereafter many other things happen, people are a little shaky in taking responsibility. No, if you are a leader, you take responsibility and put. Then people ask, what action you are going to take? I told, wait and see what action. We got told of, there were 3 officers who got involved in doing that. All 3 officers were taken out of their appointment. We had a super military inquiry. And in that we identified who are the people who have done mistakes, wrong things. So those people were dealt with. And then there is a court case going on. We have gone out of our way and supported the court case, civil police and other normal inquiries. We supported them. That is how in a democratic nation things happen. So I am not saying that we have done anything wrong there. So I am not saying that we have our soldiers, but certain actions had exceeded the certain limitations from my point of view, so that we have taken action against militarily and we have handed over to them. You can't make allegations when somebody, these things at ground level happen, and there are people, different levels, who take the responsibility.
But there's accusation of certain questionable orders being given by the former Defence Secretary. Are you aware of any of that, or did it come through you?
No, I don't know. I don't know these things, actually. Don't know in the sense nothing of this nature happens. When incidents happen, and of course Secretary of Defence and the President and the senior ministers in charge and the media people, they all call us and ask what is happening. That's a normal thing. So then we tell the stories to those people. That's inquiring it and giving some instruction to those things is a part and parcel of the people's responsibility. But this was a matter handled by those divisional commander, brigade commander and battalion commander down the line. So they handle it. So then finally when there was some issue, senior officers got involved and sorted the problem out. So that is how. Then there were allegations, so we we gave our full support to the police to do the inquiries.
I'd like to continue talking a little about responsibility that leaders should take, but that's coming up after this short break at Hyde Park. Welcome back. You're joining us at Hyde Park. General Ratnayake, I'd like to shift our attention to the Easter attacks, horrific attacks 4 months ago. But 4 months on, we're talking about several arrests still being made. PSC hearings, Parliamentary Select Committee hearings, where most of our leaders are testifying before them. But has the outcome, or has the security apparatus strengthened from your point of view?
Yeah, military and the police, and they're on the job now. They're doing it, and immediately before and during and after, if you take it, and before the situation, before the attack, of course I am not very happy about it. We had enough information, but the action has not been taken. So people are making allegations to each other and getting wrote. That is a very sad story. But during the attack, still, after that, of course, the other people got involved. Everything went okay. People got together and finished that immediately. So then the post the attack only, we have to think. Then only the military was given adequate powers to go and operate. Then intelligence operations started, so arresting, and within few days we must thank to the military and the police and other people who got involved, support Air Force and Navy and all other security people who got involved in securing the situation, bringing the situation into control the situation. We must be grateful to them. So they did. As a military, when something happens, what happened? Militarily, they take the immediate, the extremist activity and the immediate plans, they sabotage. That is how they work. Those things actually they have done very well. We must commend that. But the thereafter inquiry, investigation, the post-mortem of the whole thing is the one that you explain, and whether you're asking whether it is right or wrong. In my personal opinion, things are little politicized in my understanding. Here it is politicized, but the military action, I heard things are going on well. Even some people are being taken into custody. All technological things are being used, and various methodologies that we had being used. So that's fine, and I'm happy about it, the way the immediate threat being taken out. But these are not one-off incident. These are things that have been coming up for a longer period of time. So you have to have very good concerted effort to finish this. That I don't think that is being initiated by the government. That the research system, actually during the time that we were, immediately after the North and East conflict was over, we realized this when we are talking about national security and the threats, the extremism was taken seriously. Whether it is Sinhalese, Tamils or Muslim communities, extremism is a key thing that is happening around the world. So we were very aware of it. So we established a center to study all that, especially the Muslim fundamentalism and all those things were taken into discussion. And we have hired some people from outside, and we have hired some people from local professionals, and there was a system taking place. What I heard after 2015, all these things were got rid of.
So this system is no longer
prevalent. So this is something that government immediately start these study centers. You can call it intelligence study center or the media center, whatever you call it, to study about these things. So intelligence, military intelligence or one of the intelligence alone can't do. Separate organization has to be created to do the research and about what is happening around the world, in the region and various places. All these things to be studied and taken, lessons to be taken. So there should be a group. And also, these are the people develop concepts for the politicians or other people or education people, all these people to take it to the communities and create awareness among the community, to have reconciliation methods, have to work together, get rid of all these extremist activities. So these are things that government must take. So it must start from the education level. Likewise, so there are so many things that you have to do. In order to do that, to identify those things, you must have a study center. That is what I am saying. That is what we had earlier. Now it is no more.
So even after 4 months, even when the threat was assessed and we understood what Sri Lanka had left, are we saying that Sri Lanka hasn't looked at this very seriously?
I have no inside knowledge to comment about it, but from the surface or the outside, from the media, I don't see that there some things have happened. But seriously, intelligence organization, security organization, they are working, definitely working on these things. But other people getting involved, academics, the professionals from various sides. So you have to have a facility develop to get everybody's support in development, making national security plans and strategies and things like that.
Even on or before the Easter attacks, we still had intelligence information readily available for the country to act upon. And now the government says that they keep insisting that suspects have been arrested. They're all in cuffs, but police action shows that, you know, we keep arresting more and more. And on a daily basis or weekly, but they seem to have undergone weapons training in the hands of attack ringleaders Zaharan Hashim in several camps. General Ratnayake, in your understanding, in your analysis here, is the situation, the security situation much worse or bigger, the threat, than what we would have earlier anticipated? Because if you're still arresting those who have been trained at the hands of an extremist,
this, I mean, it is not a lighter threat. This is a very serious threat. We must take it very seriously. Unless you nib it from the bud. We have experienced in 1983 what happened. It was a similar form. It was a similar case. And how for 30 years it went up, and what extent it was developed. We all know that. So therefore we have to nib this from the bud. Initial stages only we have to finish it. So in order to do that, you have to put your foot down and really you have to invest on it. Invest money, invest manpower, invest professional, and develop a system and do that. So that is a must thing. So that is why this is very serious. This seriousness, we must not let it go. Now itself, not only, now there are three parts: capturing, eradicating extremism. Then comes people who are There are people there are so many things happening around the world as a result of this. People get self-radicalization. So these things through internet and all. So when these things happen through our religious leaders, through our education system, our social media and other things, we have to educate these people and go down to the village level and have seminars, conferences and create then come back to the long-term thing and have proper reconciliation system. These are things that we have to be very serious about it, and because we have had suffered the Sinhalese community 1971, we had 88 and Sinhala community extremists came up and you know what happened. Then 80 Tamil community 30 long years, what happened. So similar thing you should not allow between Muslim community and the government. So here we have to understand and develop a system and get rid of these things at the initial stages.
If you were asked to lead a mission to counter all this, would you happily accept?
Why not? Why you can't say? We have been soldiers, and any challenge, no problem, we can take on, no problem. Sri Lanka has gone beyond reasonable doubt. We can handle all these things. We have proved beyond reasonable doubt we have done these things, even surprising the world. So we have created world records. Terrorism, defeating terrorism was a world record. Basically, a lot of people in the world thought terrorism cannot be defeated militarily, which we have achieved it. In rehabilitation, we have achieved it. Reconciliation stuff and demining. International organization wanted 20 years to do that. Within 2-3 years, we have done it. Nobody talks about it now. So then the resettlement of 400,000 people, international organization wanted 7 to 10 years. Within 1 year we finish it. Nobody talks about it now. So here it is. So we have achieved all these things. We have experience. We have experienced people. So only thing, you have to have a proper leadership. You have to have a proper concept. You have to have a system to implement it and put it into practice.
So what I take away from this discussion tonight is that, yes, the threat is bigger, but it is possible to be handled and Sri Lanka can do it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for all the positivity and for sharing your thoughts here at Hyde Park.
Thank you, Indeewari. Thank you very much.
We had with us General Daya Ratnayake, the 20th Army Commander of Sri Lanka, joining us tonight at Hyde Park. Good night.